Territory, Dismat, South Dakota, where I lived with my family. And I was probably about 14 or 15 years old. And the winter was hard. So hard. It seemed like there were blizzards every other day. And my family had gotten very hungry. We'd used up all the wheat that we had, and there was no more. We'd used up all the wood that Pa had cut, and there was no more. So one day, when Pa went out to do his chores, he came back in, and he had brought sticks of hay. Now, the sticks were fashioned from pieces of hay that Pa had twisted into tight sticks, and they would burn in our stove. They didn't burn as long as wood, but they were a good alternative to wood, and that was all we had. Now, my Pa was nothing if not resourceful, so we burned sticks of hay. And it got so that Pa's hands were raw and sore, and so I offered to help him. I went out into the lean-to with him, and the first few sticks of hay that I twisted were not tight. They were very loose and very shabby looking. But the more I twisted, and the more I worked with Pa and watched Pa, I got to be very good at it. And I was able to help Pa so that we would have fuel to burn, because we had no coal. The trains hadn't come for months, and we were all out of kindling. So the hay was a good alternative for us. My Pa taught me to be resourceful. Also, during that long winter, I mentioned that we had run out of wheat, and we didn't know what we were going to do for food. The brown bread that my ma had been making was not delicious, but it kept us fed. But without wheat, we had nothing to eat. We couldn't make bread. So, my Pa left one day and went into another man's home on Main Street. It was the home of Almanzo and Royal Wilder. And when he got there, they were having buckwheat pancakes. My Pa brought a milking pail with him, and he sat down at the table and visited with them a while, and then he said, "I'd like to buy some wheat. My family's hungry. How much do you want for it?" And Almanzo and Royal both said they didn't have wheat to spare. So my Pa slowly got up, and he went over to the wall, and he removed the saddle that was hanging on the wall, and there was a cork in the wall. And my Pa took his bucket and braced it against the wall and removed the cork, and out spilled golden seed wheat. Now Almanzo was not happy, and he yelled at my Pa and said, "Hey, Mr. Ingalls, that's my seed wheat, and that's not for sale." My Pa said, "My family's hungry. Can't you spare some?" And Almanzo, being the good man that he was, he sold my Pa enough wheat to get us through until we could figure out something else. My ma always said, "Where there's a will, there's a way." And my Pa found the way. Later that winter, Almanzo and Royal, realizing that everyone was hungry in town, had heard that a man east of town had raised some wheat. Now, no one knew where the man lived, or even if the rumor was true. But Almanzo decided that he was going after that wheat. Now, Royal couldn't go with him. Someone had to stay and tend to their stock. Obviously, my pa couldn't go. He had a family, and he couldn't just leave us. And it was a dangerous venture. So, Cap Garland volunteered to go along with Almanzo, and they drove through terrible conditions, not even really sure they would find wheat. But they did. They found a gentleman who had raised seed wheat and was not anxious to sell it. They paid him $1.25 a bag, and they brought the seed wheat home. Now, you have to realize that blizzards came up out of nowhere, and on the way home, Almanzo and Cap were caught in a blizzard. But they managed to get the wheat home, and they saved the town. Back in those days, neighbors did for one another. Everyone looked out for each other. And that's the way my folks were. And that's the way I grew up. I learned that we take care of each other and we use our wits when we need to survive. Many, many stories about my life are written in the little house books, and you can read some if you'd like. The story that I told today came from my book, The Long Winter. And as I said, there are many stories, like the ones I told, showing the pioneer spirit. I grew up, married Almanzo Wilder, and had to show some of that pioneer spirit myself when hard times came. But I had a good example. My pa and my ma were good people who helped others